Alright, welcome back. What were we up to? Is that for real? I had no clue. Oh, that's right, weren't the servants coming to play a game of something? Dumbass, you're too loud. You'll wake Maria up. Battler was so surprised that he yelled obnoxiously and scattered his cards everywhere. His voice caused Maria to turn over once, but she soon fell back into a deep sleep. Jessica gave him a jab, and he lowered his voice. Still, seriously, now that you mention it, they really did have that kind of atmosphere, didn't they? Ah, now I see. So George Aniki is... I briefly remember this bit from the anime. George couldn't be seen anywhere in the room. A short while ago, when Shannon came into the room, George suddenly said that he'd forgotten something in the mansion and needed to go back and get it. Shannon said she would guide him, just like she had on the way to the guest house, and the two of them departed together. Ooh. Well, there's actually been signs of it for a while now. You know, questions about hobbies and favorite things. I always thought it was a bit much for a passing interest, and look what's happened now. Come to think of it, I get the feeling George Aniki's always been overly nice to Shannon-chan. Now I get it. Ooh la la. Oh, so much rain. Where are we? According to the weather report, it looks like it'll be at its worst tonight. It also seems it'll last all day tomorrow, though it should get a little better. Really? Then maybe the boat won't arrive until the day after tomorrow. I hope that doesn't interfere with your work on Monday. Ha ha ha, I already knew the typhoon would be coming beforehand. Just in case, I made sure I didn't have any plans for Monday, so it's okay. I may not look it, but I really am the type who can plan ahead in his schedule. Well, look at you, Mr. Fancy Pants. George puffed out his chest, acting proud. Compared to the calm appearance George always had as the oldest cousin, he now looked amusingly like a little kid. Shannon chuckled at this abrupt contrast. It's no surprise you're so well prepared, as someone who'll bring prosperity to his company someday. Well, making a company prosper really is a tough job. Money isn't the only thing that's important. I learned that well when studying under my father. Making a company prosper is like owning a castle and leading your subordinates. My dad really loves reading about great leaders during the warring periods of Japan, a hobby that's probably influenced by the fact that he shares Toyotomi Hideyoshi's name. Indeed he does. Much of his philosophy on managing businesses comes from talking about them. Did you know? ねえ、知ってる? Takeda Shingen, who was feared as the leader of the strongest cavalry corps in the warring periods, started out with his troops in complete disarray, and didn't have the kind of strong leadership necessary to utilize them well. Are you ragging on my man Takeda? Is that true? That's a little unexpected. I don't think she cares about the Sengoku period, to be honest. Just a guess. In order to unite his troops, Shingen showed his excellent leadership in many ways. For example, when a soldier succeeded well in battle, he would immediately honor them with a medal. Normally, that kind of thing was put off until after the war, and they were all awarded at once. I mean, in theory that's a good idea, because if they waited until the end of the war, everyone would be dead, and then they wouldn't have to give any, so, you know. He continued this diligently while on the field of battle, and immediately showing his appreciation for his troops' military exploits motivated them in an extremely significant fashion. Oh, George, you use so many big words. Also, whenever one of his troops was brought down by an illness, he would be the first to rush up to them and care for them. And so on. Takeda Shingen wasn't just the man who led the strongest cavalry corps in the warring period. He was the person who cared the most for his troops throughout that era. Oh, it sounds like he wants to get into an argument. You want to get into an argument, George Anarchy? Because that's how you get into an argument. And because he was that kind of person, all of his troops went along with him. The truth was, Shannon had already heard this story several years ago, poor thing. But whenever a discussion of his father led to this sort of topic, George would always glow and look like he was having a great time. So Shannon just smiled without interrupting, urging him to continue. Oh yes, totally, please, I am absolutely listening, do go on. Of course, in a capitalist world, money determines both your strength and the height of your fortifications. But you can't build up a castle or succeed in war by yourself. Sounds like a challenge. Such things can only be accomplished with the support of many subordinates, by borrowing their strength. Are you calling me a subordinate, George? After understanding this, when I look at my father's back, I realize how immature I am. Maybe you should look at his front. I can clearly see how much competition he had to overcome before building up all he has now. George-sama, you truly look up to your father. I'm jealous. Do they even have parents? Ah, sorry, that's not how I meant it. I'm sorry, that's not how I meant it either. Oh, God. The two of them awkwardly looked at their feet. Shannon, well, there you go. Shannon had no parents. She had been brought up in an orphanage owned by Kinzo called the Fukuing House. Under the guidance of Kinzo, their honorary director, the orphanage offered members who excelled a chance for on-the-job serving experience. Oh hell yeah, the dream! On-the-job serving experience. If their efforts met with Kinzo's approval, they'd be able to leave the orphanage and work as servants for the Ushiromiya family. Oh yeah, get that slave labor. This family is awful. This was considered to be the highest honor for those who lived in the orphanage. It just gets worse. Servants from the Fukuing house all took names with the character on in them while they served. Naruhodo. So, Shannon wasn't her real name. Yeah, I kind of figured that. The same went for Kanon. Now, I think I've mentioned before, I have taught kids that were called Kanon, so that's actually a name, but I've never seen a boy with that name. All of the members of the Fukuing house were orphans. I would presume so if they were in an orphanage. At least, they were all people who had been separated from their parents under special circumstances. Because of this, the orphans had been taught to think of each other as their only family. Furniture doesn't have family. That's why it seemed so natural to both of them when Kanon called Shannon his sister. And while both Shannon and Kanon were working in the mansion today, there were several other servants possessing the on character in their names, such as Manon and Lennon. Well, that's an interesting name. Who often worked in a rotation schedule. Why the hell do they all have on in their name? That's just weird. However, there were not many servants who stayed with the Ushiromiya family for long. Maybe because they're douchebags. It was standard for them to quit after 3 years. So you could probably say that Shannon, who had been working for 10 years, Jesus, was a notable exception to the rule. Girl, what is wrong with you? Working as a servant for the Ushiromiya family was a heavy burden to bear, but the pay wasn't bad at all. But if they're servants, if they're furniture, what are they even doing with their pay? Do they even have time to enjoy their pay? Don't they just spend their entire time on the island? I have many questions. Working for a full 3 years would earn more than what was needed to enter mainstream society. Oh yeah, the dream, now I can be a businessman who works 20 hours a day. That was why, even though the orphans realized what a harsh task working for the Ushinomiya family was, they still hoped to be accepted. Maybe the fact that Shannon managed to continue working for 10 years. Wait, if she's been working for 10 years, and if they usually work for 3 years and that gives them enough money to start life anew, George Aniki's onto something. Wasn't because she had more willpower than the other servants. Maybe she'd gotten stuck working for 10 years because she didn't have the courage to say she wanted to quit. Kinzo couldn't even trust his own blood relatives, and these excellent servants sent from the Fukuing house were the only ones he could rely on. Because of that, Kinzo would sometimes allow them to wear the family crest, as servants under his direct control, and have them work close to him. Wait, does Shannon have one? I haven't even noticed. You've been working here for almost 10 years now, right? She's probably got more money than George. You must have saved up a lot of money by now. I don't see... is that a crest on... What is that? It looks like skin color. What is that down there by her hands? I wonder. It's not like there's anything in particular I'd like to buy. Well, I'll have it. After all, a few million yen isn't enough to live off for the rest of your life. It's still bloody nice though. So the reason you've been working all this time wasn't to hit some target sum. Yes, that's right. I have nowhere to go outside this mansion. And I have been getting along well with Milady and the other young servants. The madam does scold me sometimes, but caring for the roses and cleaning the mansion is fun. I'm sure it is. But that can't be your entire life, Shannon-chan. No, Sayo-chan. Ooh, Sayo-chan. I taught her Sayo. Shannon cast her eyes downwards when she heard her real name. She understood what George was trying to say and fell silent. There's something I've learned as I continue to study even after becoming an adult and a full-fledged member of society. A human's life is not as monotonous or short as we thought when we were kids. It's long and dull. All school-aged kids have certain fears they can't shake. They wonder whether they'll live the rest of their lives like sleepy classes after a monotonous and boring school day, spending their time in a carefree laziness without anything interesting happening until it's all over. Is George describing the modern lifestyle? Stay tuned. However, life's only like that for underage students. Oh, George Aniki, we need to have a chat, bro. Compared to a human's life, the time they spend as students is nothing more than a blink of the eye, a period where they break through the shells of their immaturity. The inside of the shell might be a hot, suffocating, and boring world, but the world beyond that shell is vast and filled with limitless possibilities. Perhaps if you have as much money as George, yeah. So far, your life has been trapped inside the shell called Shannon. I think you're under the mistaken impression that your life will continue like this forever. That's... Same. Shannon couldn't deny those words. She'd been unable to harbour any clear doubts about her lifestyle, and since she never had any hope or goals for changing herself, she'd lazily continued living the way she always had. And if asked whether this life was satisfying, she wouldn't have been able to nod. She may have been intentionally averting her eyes from the truth. Without George's admonishments, she would have continued pretending not to notice as her real life slipped away bit by bit, neglected. Oh, thank you, great white knight George Aniki. You have shown us the way. George-sama, is it wrong for me to continue living this way? Speaking sporadically, with many breaks? Yeah, it is. You should speak clearly. Oh, and by the way, didn't you break one of our rules just now? George immediately gave a strict answer, then broke out into a mischievous smile. Shannon already knew what she was being chided for, and she hung her head again, apparently embarrassed. Didn't you promise not to use summer when the two of us are alone? I couldn't obey that as a promise. But if it was an order, I would have to obey it. Because I'm furniture. Then it's an order. This relationship is so many levels of wrong. Yes. Certainly. George-san. As Shannon hung her head, her face red, she said George's name again, this time following it with san. Yes, thank you, game. I would never have known that. Yes, that's fine, Sayo-chan. Oh god, this is gonna get weird really quick. I taught a student with that name, and it's a very unique name. Only ever taught one student with it, so now this is just... I hope this doesn't go places that makes it weird. George smiled at Shannon. No, Sayo. To praise her small act of bravery. Oh, it's gonna get weird, isn't it? This short exchange alone made it clear how far back their relationship must have stretched. For a long while, the two talked as if the weather raging about them didn't even enter their thoughts. They talked about the many memories they'd built during their relationship that no one else knew about. I think they do know. Every once in a while, a flash of lightning would attempt to interrupt them, but this could sully neither the roses nor the time they spent blushing at each other. That's right. I have something I wanted to show you. Uh-oh. What could it be? George, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly started to stutter. Watching him, Shannon seemed to guess something. George timidly searched through his pocket. Oh no. Something got caught in the depths of his pocket. Oh no. And just like the stuttering George, it took a little while to get it out. Oh God, no. Oh my. It was a very small box. A small box covered in a deep blue velvet. That peculiar shape was enough to tell anyone what was resting inside. Shannon had prepared her heart somewhat, certain beforehand that this was what he'd been planning. But even so, when she actually saw it, she couldn't avoid blushing once more. George opened the small box, took something out, and held it out for Shannon to take. This went wrong places very quickly. I want you to take this, oh my. I couldn't accept something so valuable. You can't take it? No, I'm unworthy of such a thing. Sayo, this isn't a request. This is the worst relationship. It's an order. Take this ring. Okay? That is absolutely the basis of a relationship that you want to build on. Ah. Ooh. If it's an order, I cannot disobey. Yeah, that's right. Well done. Oh my god. This is awful. Shannon, not wanting to show her bright red face, timidly accepted the ring from George's hand, while still staring at the ground. That ring wasn't a simple accessory. It was a noble object, meant since ancient times to be offered to a special woman under special circumstances. Can Beatrice take them first? Therefore, while George could order her to take it, he could not order anything beyond that. Anything beyond that would depend not on an order, but on Shannon's, no, Sayo's own will. So, from here on, I'm not ordering you anymore. Thank God. Sayo, I want you to give me your answer by tomorrow, without using words. Wait, what? Do you understand? Not really. how should I won't order you any further, so this isn't an order. Keep saying that. But a ring is something you put on your finger after all. If you like it, you can just put it on any finger you choose. Shannon had only pretended not to know. She already understood what he wanted her to do. But she was standing at a huge crossroads of her life. Look how late it's gotten. Let's call it a day. George turned away from Shannon, acting just a bit bluntly. I could probably order you to wear it on your left hand. You might be timid and dependent enough to actually obey that kind of order. But I want at least this last step to be done by your own will, Sayo. Understand? Yes. So, that's my order. Stop saying that. I want you to think about it well tonight and show me your answer tomorrow. Same. Shannon nodded back. Today was the culmination of their many days spent together. This moment certainly hadn't come as a surprise to Shannon. We should be getting back to the guest house soon. If we take any longer, we'll make everyone worry about us. Oh, I'm sorry. I just remembered something I had to do in the mansion. So, I have to go back to the mansion. At a time like this? Is that true? What a silly question to ask. George stared into Shannon's face as he laughed mischievously. He definitely saw through Shannon's lie. However, when he saw how she felt, he could sort of understand that she might be so embarrassed that she'd want to be alone. So, because George realized the meaning behind Shannon's lie, he accepted it. Okay. Ooh. Gets me every time. What's the time? 10. 11. Getting close to midnight. Shannon entered the entrance hall to the mansion with a tottering gait. A mixture of exultation and uncertainty gave her a feeling that she couldn't easily describe. It swelled up in her chest, until it felt like she was about to burst. After stopping for a second in front of the servant room to take a deep breath and calm her heart, she opened the door. No, is that the photo frame? Inside, Goda, who had been ordered to take the midnight shift at the mansion tonight, was absorbed in a worn-out crossword puzzle magazine. How does that work? He looked up for an instant to see if one of the family had come, but when he realized it was a fellow servant, he returned to his puzzle, as if nothing had happened. Douchebag. Genji-sama told me to come and help you. Ah, is that so? That's a relief. I was just about to go check that the mansion was fully locked up, but I felt uneasy about leaving this room unmanned. After all, Kraus-sama and the others' meeting looks as though it will continue for quite some time. They might request some tea at any moment. Serious business. That's true. Then what shall we do? Should I watch over? In that case, forgive me, Shannon-san, but I'll ask that you patrol the mansion. Oh, you beast, making the woman patrol? I will stay here, awaiting the family's orders. Yes. Shannon was, slightly disgusted. Girl. Even though she'd come here to help out as a favor, she was casually being forced to do the job of the person actually on duty. Furthermore, after one-sidedly forcing that task on her, Godo returned to his magazine once again and became immersed in his crossword puzzle. Well, you can answer that by doing a really shitty job, and then lay all the blame on him. Shannon bowed her head as a token sigh of respect for her elder, then left the room to patrol the mansion. Thanks to her being a bit ticked off, she managed to suppress that floaty feeling she'd been having until just now. And anyway, she couldn't let Genji or Kanon see her looking like this. She wanted a little time to herself until her heart calmed down, so maybe going on patrol wouldn't be so bad. Sounds like famous last words. She began to hear the tumultuous voices of the family discussion coming from the dining hall. Someone was speaking at great length, only to be interrupted by someone else. This second person also began to speak in a very long, drawn-out fashion. "Oh, hey, it sounds like this game," until yet another person interrupted. That kept on repeating, just like this game. It was as though their displeasure was seeping out through their voices. She had been told to go to the guest house, so it would be bad if Kraus discovered her. Thinking this, Shannon dashed past the dining hall. All the mixing of Japanese and Australian sounds is driving my mouth insane. Then she went along a prearranged route through the dark mansion, checking that all the locks were secure. She walked down the hall, checking each window. There were no humans on Nokkenjima other than those connected to the family, so locking up didn't really serve much of a purpose. No one had been in the habit of locking up at the Ushiromiya head family, at least not until Natsuhi had scolded them for being careless. The metal fixtures on the windows were ice cold, and as she checked them one by one, the glow in her heart seemed to cool down. Yeah, I don't think you want to marry into this family of douchebags. Ooh. Nani. At that time, she thought she saw something twinkling across the hall. Twinkling? How could anything be twinkling through the darkness of the hall? She figured she must have been imagining it, but she still held her breath. Grasping a curtain, she fearfully gazed down the hall. However, other than the occasional crack of thunder brightening the hallway, she was unable to glimpse any flicker again. It must have been her imagination after all. Maybe her heart was so agitated that she'd seen something that didn't even exist. Shannon went back to checking the windows. However, a certain unnerving memory was resurrected in the back of her mind. It was that ghost story, which had been passed down amongst the servants who served the Ushiromiya head family. The mansion had two different masters, one of the day and one of the night. Beatrice, the master of the night, would sometimes fly around the mansion in the form of sparkling butterflies. Nice. That was the story. Come to think of it, didn't Kanon-kun once say he'd seen it with his own eyes? But he got sulky when I said he must have imagined it and refused to believe him. Could it possibly be true? The roar of the thunder gave no answer. The house looks wrecked. Is that water on the floor? Beatrice! What has happened? I was half expecting her to move then. Okay. 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 We're getting a rundown of all the people. What is happening? Genji-sama. Kumasawa-san. Hey, it's my man. Ooh, achievement unlocked. It's midnight. Nice. Nice. Now the fun can... Now the fun can begin. Oh, okay. We just skipped past that entire night. Okay. The second day. October 5th, 1986. Alright, this seems like a really good place to end this episode. And we'll come back and see what happens on the second day in the next one. We'll see you there.